It was a crisp autumn evening in October 2019 when Keanu Reeves walked into the lobby of a luxurious boutique hotel in Los Angeles. Clad in a simple black blazer and jeans, he blended in as an ordinary traveler. The guests around him had no idea they were sharing space with the secret owner of the very hotel they admired. The establishment was Keanu's personal project, a sanctuary where kindness and warmth were meant to prevail. But that evening, as he approached the reception desk, the welcome he received was anything but warm. "Excuse me, sir," snapped Amanda, the receptionist in her early 30s, exuding an air of superiority. "Do you even have a reservation? We don't just let anyone walk in here." Keanu's expression remained calm, masking his surprise. "Actually, I do," he replied, pulling out his phone to show the confirmation email. Amanda barely glanced at it before continuing in a dismissive tone, loud enough for nearby guests to hear, "This isn't the kind of place you can just book on a whim. We cater to an elite clientele, celebrities, CEOs, people who can afford it. Try the motel down the street." A young couple seated by the fireplace, Emily and David, exchanged uneasy glances. They whispered to each other, wondering if the man being berated could possibly be Keanu Reeves. The tension in the lobby thickened, but Keanu remained composed. Amanda's disdainful remarks escalated until the hotel manager, James, intervened. His face paled as he recognized Keanu. "Amanda, stop!" he exclaimed. "Do you know who this is? He owns the hotel." The revelation stunned the room into silence. Amanda's confidence evaporated, replaced by visible shock and embarrassment. Keanu, however, stood firm, his steady gaze reflecting disappointment rather than anger. The lobby was heavy with silence, as the reality of the situation dawned on everyone. Amanda's face drained of color, her earlier arrogance replaced by trembling lips and teary eyes. She stammered, "Mr. Reeves, I'm so sorry." Keanu took a deep breath, his calm demeanor unwavering as he looked her directly in the eyes. "I believe in kindness," he said, his voice steady, but laden with meaning. "It's the foundation of everything we built here. Everyone deserves respect, no matter where they come from or how they look." Tears rolled down Amanda's cheeks as her guilt overtook her. She whispered, "I let my pride and prejudice cloud my judgment. Please forgive me." Keanu didn't respond immediately. Instead, he turned his gaze toward the other guests in the lobby, making a connection with each one. He saw Emily and David watching from their seat by the fireplace, their faces filled with admiration. Across the room, a young boy held his mother's hand, his wide eyes fixed on Keanu. Finally, Keanu spoke again, his voice gentle yet resolute. "Words are easy. Actions matter more. How you treat people when no one's watching is what defines you." The manager, James, stepped forward, his tone filled with remorse. "Mr. Reeves, I take full responsibility for this. This is not what we stand for, and I promise things will change." Keanu gave him a small nod but kept his attention on Amanda. "The world needs more kindness," he said softly, "and it starts with us." Emily whispered to David, her voice trembling with emotion. "It's incredible how someone who's been through so much pain can still choose to be kind." Just then, the young boy approached Keanu hesitantly. "Mr. Reeves," he said, his voice small and uncertain. Keanu knelt down to meet him at eye level, offering a warm smile. The boy reached into his pocket and pulled out a crumpled piece of paper. "My dad used to watch your movies with me before he went to heaven," the boy said, his voice breaking. "He always said you were the nicest person in Hollywood." I think he was right. Keanu's eyes filled with tears as he gently unfolded the paper. It was a simple drawing of a superhero, with the boy's shaky handwriting at the top. To Mr. Reeves, the real superhero. The room was silent once again, not out of shock, but out of awe. Keanu hugged the boy gently and said, "Your dad must have been an amazing person. Thank you for sharing this with me. It means more than you know." As Keanu stood, the young boy's drawing still clutched in his hand. The atmosphere in the lobby shifted. The cold indifference that had marked Amanda's earlier behavior gave way to something warmer, deeper, humility. Amanda, still trembling, whispered, "I don't know what came over me. I've let my pride dictate my actions for too long." Her tears flowed freely now. "Please, Mr. Reeves, I'll do whatever it takes to make this right." Keanu nodded, his gaze steady but kind. "It's not about apologies," he said. "It's about understanding and change. Kindness isn't just something we show when we're watched. It's who we are when no one's looking." The words hit Amanda like a wave. She lowered her head, silently vowing to be better. Meanwhile, James, the manager, stepped forward with newfound resolve. "Mr. Reeves," he said, "I assure you, this won't happen again. We'll ensure this place reflects the values you intended." Keanu offered him a small nod. "Good," he said simply, his focus turning back to Amanda. "Your actions, moving forward, will speak louder than your words ever could." At that moment, a soft melody began to fill the air. Across the room, an older man, George, who worked as a maintenance staff member, sat at the grand piano in the corner. His fingers moved deftly across the keys, playing a hauntingly beautiful rendition of Claire de Lune. The music enveloped the room, softening the tense emotions. Keanu turned toward George, a wistful smile forming on his face. As the melody ended, Keanu approached him and gently placed a hand on his shoulder. "That was incredible," Keanu said warmly. "How long have you been playing?" George chuckled, his weathered face lighting up. "Longer than I've been fixing pipes, that's for sure. My wife loved this piece. I used to play it for her every night before she passed." Keanu's expression softened further, a deep understanding reflected in his eyes. "She must have been lucky to have someone who loved her like that," he said. George smiled faintly, his eyes glistening. "No, Mr. Reeves, I was the lucky one." The room fell into a contemplative silence, the weight of the moment settling over everyone present. Keanu turned back to the guests and staff, his voice calm yet filled with purpose. "The hardest thing about being human," he said, "is carrying the weight of everything you've lost. But it's also what makes love so powerful. It's what keeps us going." As the weight of Keanu's words lingered, the young boy who had approached him earlier clutched his mother's hand and turned to leave the lobby. But Keanu called after him, his voice steady, yet filled with emotion. "Wait," he said. Keanu reached into his pocket and pulled out a small keychain, a token from one of his movie sets. Though it was old and scratched, it still gleamed faintly under the warm lights of the lobby. Kneeling back down to the boy's level, Keanu held it out to him. "Your dad must have been a great man," Keanu said gently. "I want you to have this. It's not much, but maybe it will remind you that heroes come in all shapes and sizes." The boy's eyes widened with wonder as he accepted the gift, his small hands trembling. "Thank you, Mr. Reeves," he whispered, his voice barely audible. Keanu smiled faintly, the pain in his eyes unmistakable. "Take care of your mom, okay? She's your hero, too." The boy nodded earnestly, clutching the keychain as if it were the most precious treasure in the world. His mother, standing nearby, had tears streaming down her face. She mouthed the words, "Thank you," overwhelmed by the moment her son had just experienced. As the boy and his mother walked toward the revolving doors, the entire lobby seemed to hold its breath, watching them leave. Amanda, still shaken, observed the scene with a heavy heart. Something inside her shifted as she saw the quiet, selfless way Keanu connected with the boy. Her tears now weren't just from shame, but from a deep ache, a longing to rediscover the kindness she'd lost somewhere along the way. Keanu's words echoed in her mind. How you treat people when no one's watching is what defines you. The boy paused at the door and turned back, scanning the room until his eyes found Amanda. He waved at her, a small but sincere gesture of forgiveness. Amanda's throat tightened as she waved back, a tear slipping down her cheek. In that moment, she understood it wasn't just Keanu who had given the boy a gift. The boy had, in turn, given everyone in the room a chance to be better. Keanu stood silently, his gaze following the boy and his mother until they disappeared into the crowd outside. For the first time in weeks, a faint flicker of peace seemed to settle in his chest. Later that evening, Keanu sat alone in his private suite. The room was luxurious, every detail carefully curated to exude warmth and elegance, but it felt cold to him. On the desk by the window lay the boy's drawing, its simplicity carrying an emotional weight far greater than anything else in the room. Keanu picked it up, his hands trembling slightly as he stared at the words. To Mr. Reeves, the real superhero. The boy's voice echoed in his mind, blending with memories he rarely allowed himself to revisit. His thoughts drifted to his own father, a man who had left when Keanu was just a boy. He remembered the emptiness of those years, the questions that remained unanswered, and the void that no achievement could fill. He thought of Jennifer, the love of his life, and the dreams they were supposed to share, her laughter, her warmth, and the future they had envisioned together, lost in an instant. Her absence was a wound that never truly healed. His mind shifted to his sister's battle with leukemia and the helplessness he had felt watching her fight for her life. The losses were countless, each one a weight that he carried every day, a reminder of how fragile life could be. Keanu sat down slowly, the drawing still in his hands. His gaze moved to the safe in the corner of the room. He stood, walked over, and opened it. Inside were cherished mementos, a photograph of Jennifer, a bracelet his sister had given him, and a worn copy of a book his late friend River Phoenix had loved. He carefully placed the boy's drawing among these treasures, tucking it between the pages of the book. As he closed the safe, his phone buzzed. It was a message from James, the hotel manager. "Thank you for tonight. You reminded all of us why we're here. Amanda wanted me to tell you she's ready to change. I think we all are." Keanu smiled faintly, his eyes glistening. He replied simply, "Kindness is a ripple. Let's keep it going." He returned to the desk, his gaze falling once again on the empty space where the drawing had been. For the first time in a long while, he felt a flicker of hope, small but steady. The following morning, Keanu stepped into the lobby as sunlight poured through the tall windows, casting a golden glow over the bustling scene. Guests were checking out, sipping coffee and chatting softly. The air was filled with a sense of newness, as if the events of the previous evening had left an indelible mark on the hotel. Amanda stood at the reception desk, her posture more humble, yet purposeful. Her eyes were red, evidence of a restless night spent reflecting on her actions. As Keanu approached, she straightened, clasping her hands nervously. "Mr. Reeves," she began, her voice steady but emotional. "I just want to say thank you, not just for last night, but for giving me a second chance. I promise I'll make the most of it." Keanu studied her for a moment, then gave her a small nod. "It's not about being perfect," he said gently. "It's about being better than we were yesterday. Keep trying." Across the lobby, the young boy and his mother were preparing to leave. The boy clutched the envelope Keanu had left for him earlier, his face beaming with joy. As they reached the door, he turned back one last time, his eyes scanning the room. When he saw Amanda, he waved, a gesture filled with forgiveness and hope. Amanda waved back, her throat tightening as another tear slipped down her cheek. Keanu watched the boy and his mother step out into the busy street, disappearing into the crowd. He stood still for a moment, taking it all in. The warmth of the morning sun, the murmur of conversations, the quiet resolve that seemed to settle over the staff and guests alike. James approached him, holding a steaming cup of coffee. "You've done something remarkable here, Mr. Reeves," he said. "You've reminded all of us why this place exists." Keanu smiled faintly, taking the coffee. "This place isn't about luxury or status," he replied. "It's about people. Let's never forget that." As the morning rush continued, Keanu prepared to leave the hotel. Before stepping outside, he turned to address the staff gathered nearby. "Sometimes the smallest moments remind us of the biggest truths," he said, his voice calm but resolute. "Kindness matters. Love heals. And even in the darkest times we can be someone's light." With that, he stepped into the crisp autumn air. The streets of Los Angeles bustled around him, yet he felt a rare sense of peace. In his pocket was the note he had written for himself the night before, a quiet reminder of the boy's drawing and his own resilience. Heroes aren't just in the movies, he thought. They're in the quiet, everyday acts of love and kindness that connect us all. And with those words echoing in his heart, Keanu Reeves walked away, blending into the crowd like any other face in the city, leaving behind a story that would stay with everyone who had witnessed it. A story of humility, redemption, and the enduring power of kindness.